UFC Fight Night Apex card just wrapped up. Tatsuro Taira versus Jun Park. What a card. What an amazing card. It just needed a crowd. Absolutely pathetic. I hate the Apex. And the fights were amazing. They deserved a crowd. But we've got a tier list video for you today. This is my first time ever doing this kind of video straight after a UFC card, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be ranking each performance of the night using the following metrics. Great performance means they had a great performance. It was standout. They take a lot of stock coming off the card. Good win means it was a solid win. Some tricky moments here and there, but still a solid win that can move the career forwards. Iffy, if I spelled iffy right, I don't even know if iffy's a word. It is to me. Iffy means a lot of areas for improvement. Maybe you got a decent win, but you massively struggled. Maybe you got a loss, but you could have done a lot better, and you are better than that loss might suggest. Oh, brother means, oh, brother, that was a bad performance. And cut that man means, you guessed it, cut that man. It's time to get out the UFC. So, without further ado, we have got Raphael Esteban. So, Raphael Esteban, straight away, he's going to go into iffy. I would have put Esteban in good win had he have not missed weight for the second time in his career. And he did win this fight against Felipe Bunez using his weight, using his strong top control and strong pressure on top. I really thought that Raphael Esteban put in a decent performance. It should be here. Pretty good takedowns, not the worst striking in the world. Got caught a couple of times here and there. Bunez is not a bad fighter. I know he's probably, I think it's 1 and 2 in the UFC now. He's not a bad fighter. He has actually got pretty decent ability. I think iffy is absolutely fair for Esteban. He's got to start making weight or just move up a division. Weighing in at 130 pounds really is not a good look whatsoever. And then we, of course, have got Felipe Bunez, oh brother. Did all right. Had some moments of success. Doesn't really move his head off centre line, keeps his chin in the air, relies way too much on his parries, and that's what got him caught and knocked out against Joshua Van. And in this fight too, those same holes were still there. He has a pretty decent... Did he almost have a buggy choke on Esteban in the first round? I mean, it was a slow, cranking choke, and at the end, Esteban kind of got up wobbly. You could tell it kind of drained the blood out the legs a little bit and the arms of Esteban. So Bunez showed pretty decent flexibility off his back attacking with the buggy choke in the first round, but overall, not the best performance by either of them. It's not Felipe Bunez's fault that Esteban came in at £5 over the £125 weight limit. I know it was £4 over because you can weigh in at £126 on a preliminary fight, but it is what it is, man. I don't rate that from Esteban, especially with the way he won, using his weight. I'd like to see him stay consistent. If he's going to stay in the flyweight division, man, you've got to make weight. You just have to make weight because it's not a good look. Austin Bashi, he's going to go right up into good win. I really liked Austin Bashi's performance. He's coming off a loss just in February. And you know, when you're a young guy like Austin Bashi, you've got to get straight back in there. Even if it is quite a difficult loss where you had a lot to improve on. Austin Bashi is pretty well-rounded. He's very, very athletic. He fought John Yanis, who, look, to be absolutely straight with you, John Yanis filled his role in this fight. And his role was to come in and lose. It was his UFC debut. Of course, you never know because he's an unknown quantity. But Austin Bashi smashed him to pieces. It was very easy for him. It was a tailor-made matchup for him. That's why I wouldn't put it in great performance, because it wasn't really somebody that you knew would test Austin Bashi. But it's still a good performance, a good way to get back on track in your UFC career. So I put Austin Bashi in good win. And then obviously John Yanis could be a little bit harsh, but cut that man. He didn't show any... I know it was short notice, UFC debut, but obviously there is a certain element of skill, like of ability, that you have got to show in order to get a UFC contract for me. And, you know, if he gets a couple more UFC fights for doing the UFC a favour, I won't mind. But to be honest with you, I'm not in a rush to see John Yanis in the UFC again. So he's got a lot more work to do, in my opinion, to get to that level. So John Yanis, for me, cut that man. And when I say cut that man, it doesn't mean I'm trying to be hateful or like I'm trying to be horrible. It's just the way the sport is. There's a standard in the sport that fans need to have watching it and how high the hell hold fighters in terms of ability. And, you know, oh brother is Felipe Bunez level. John Yanis, I wouldn't even say is on Felipe Bunez level. And we all knew John Yanis was going to lose this fight and lose this fight pretty comfortably. And he did. Nick Klein. Oh, brother. Nick Klein wasn't terrible to start his fight off with Andre Pulev. Kind of fought the right game plan. He just didn't have the athleticism, the power, the cardio to outwork Pulev in the end. He expended too much energy early trying to get Pulev out of there. Very aggressive up against the fence, trying to get constant takedowns on Pulev, using what his advantages over Pulev, if there is any. He wasn't very athletic compared to Pulev in there, though. Pulev, I think, got caught off guard by the pace of Nick Klein early on. I really do believe that. I think he struggled to settle into the fight. But once he started settling in and he was landing those fade-off left straights and that body kick, brutal stuff, Pulev really settled into the fight and picked up a pretty good win, I would say. Or I'd say iffy, actually, for Pulev. I'd say iffy. Nick Klein doesn't have absolute bags of ability, and he made it a really tricky performance from Pulev. It was almost a banana skin, to be honest with you. But once Pulev settled into the fight, he really started to pick Nick Klein off and got a good finish. Iffy might be a little bit harsh, but I wouldn't say it was like an absolute solid win. I think you would expect Pulev to beat Nick Klein a bit more comfortably. I don't know whether this was on short notice or not, actually, but still. Some good moments from Pulev, some good moments from Nick Klein. Nick Klein, obviously, just didn't have the gas tank to follow it up and really seal the deal and keep that pace and that erratic pace he needed to on Andre Pulev. And ultimately, you saw that in the fight. It was a solid win for Andre Pulev, to be honest with you. Moving on, Tong Gore. Unfortunately, now, if anybody's been watching my TikTok for any length of time, you know, coming off The Ultimate Fighter, I did really like Tong Gore. I appreciated his story. I appreciated his journey. He's not got the best record, 6-4. That's never a good look when you're going into the UFC. I think he came into this fight 3 pounds overweight, so 189 pounds, or was it 4 pounds overweight, compared to the... It was 3 pounds overweight because you could weigh in at 186 pounds, pardon me, over the middleweight limit. Came into this fight, Rodolfo Vieira pretty much comfortably beat him. Rodolfo Vieira, good win. Rodolfo Vieira stuck to his jab, worked off angles really well. Tong Gore's takedown defence was much improved. Obviously, we didn't see that guillotine. He's pretty decent at attacking within this one. Showed pretty good balance, but you could tell Tong Gore was very defensive this whole fight. Rodolfo Vieira kept him defensive, kept him moving back on the back foot. Just nice straight punches using his jab. Tong Gore couldn't time the parries and he didn't have any head movement to answer behind the straight punches of Rodolfo Vieira. He didn't do bad, Tong Gore, especially in the third round. You could tell he gave it a good go, but the weight miss is not a good look. Your UFC record's not good enough. I was a big fan of Tong Gore coming off The Ultimate Fighter. You know, you do root for guys like him because he has a pretty good story. And yeah, I just liked his character. I liked how humble he was on The Ultimate Fighter. But man, obviously, I just don't think he's UFC level. And as harsh as it is to say, you know, this is what the video's about. Cut that man, oh brother. You know, not on Nick Klein or Felipe Bunes' level. Definitely did better than John Yanis, but it's his UFC career all around accumulated. If that was Tong Gore's first fight in the UFC, you might be like, Rodolfo Vieira's crafty, a crafty veteran, you know, big meaty hooks, Lucas Tracy style. A crafty veteran, you could say, Rodolfo Vieira is, if it was Tong Gore's first UFC fight, but it's not his first UFC fight. He's had a few now, and I just don't think he's done anything impressive enough to keep him in the UFC. And I think Tong Gore missed weight probably knowing that what's the point in suffering the weight cut? I'm probably going to get cut anyway. So that confidence for me was probably never even there to begin with. Good performance by Rodolfo Vieira, kept Tong Gore defensive, picked up a good win. He's not a bad fighter, is he, Rodolfo Vieira? Very good submissions, and you could tell Tong Gore was terrified of that takedown because he never got going on the feet. The takedown threat alone evened it up on the feet. We've seen so many fights that go that way, and that was another one. Rinya Nakamura, you know what? Rinya Nakamura is going to go straight up into... He was such a big favourite, so he's not quite going to sneak into great performance, but he is going to go in good win. It was a very, very good win for Rinya Nakamura. I was really impressed with him. I thought Rinya Nakamura might go in there and get some control time on Nathan Fletcher. Nathan Fletcher was a huge underdog, the biggest betting underdog of the card, I do believe. And Going off Rinya Nakamura's last fight with Muin Gafurov, where he kind of got quote-unquote fraud-checked or hype train derailed. You know, Gafurov beat him. Rinya Nakamura didn't really have any answer once he couldn't get the takedowns on Gafurov. And I thought Nathan Fletcher's pretty well-rounded. He's coming off a bit of a robbery loss to... who was it to now? Kalen Loughran, was it? Or yeah, I think it was Kalen Loughran. I thought Nathan Fletcher won that fight, and it was pretty clear Nathan Fletcher won that fight. So really, he could be on a 2-fight winning streak in the UFC coming into this one. Not a bad fight, Nathan Fletcher. That body kick was absolutely brutal. I mean, just horrible. Horrible. Toes straight under the ribs. Nathan Fletcher didn't even he wasn't showing any facial expressions. He was just sat there in silence. And that's when you know it really hurts. That's when, you know, when you're trying to show that it didn't hurt, that's when it really hurt. His body just shut down on him. Fletcher tried to tough it out, but that was a brutal round kick to the body. Fletcher's going to have to go slightly below Nick Klein and O-Brother, though. He can't afford, although, yes, I think it was a robbery loss to Kalen Loughran. 2-fight losing streak, 1 more loss, and he might be going in to cut that man. He's got to get a big win in his next fight, if he gets a next fight. Obviously, he was a big betting underdog against Rinya Nakamura, and it was now obvious why he was. You know, the big betting favourite won in the first round. But I definitely think Fletcher was a lot better than that. A lot better than he showed. Which is why you could put Fletcher in iffy. But O-Brother, because it was such a one-sided loss and such a brutal loss, didn't do anything in the fight of note. Defensively, didn't deal with the body kicks well enough. Came in with a low guard and a low stance, trying to prepare for Rinya Nakamura's takedowns, you could tell. But man, you've got to accept that maybe Rinya Nakamura's got a lot for you on the feet too, and Nakamura moved a lot better than Fletcher, looked a lot more explosive in there. And he got a really good first round finish, a really good win for Rinya Nakamura. Again, staying active, getting that loss back and getting back on track's important. You don't want to stay out for over a year. You don't want to stay out for too long before you get back in there and all of a sudden you're just not confident anymore. So it was a really good win for Rinya Nakamura. I was really impressed with him. Nathan Fletcher's got to go in O-Brother though, and I don't want to do that. He trains in Next Gen, doesn't he? I believe. I rate Nathan Fletcher. Could have done a lot better there, but it's got to be O-Brother. It's just got to be. Danny Silva, iffy. Danny Silva's ego against Kevin Vijayhos cost him big time. He's got to go below Nikolai Poliev. Yeah, it cost him big time against Kevin Vijayhos. Throughout many times in this fight, he was trying to ego bait Vijayhos into exchanging with him and getting careless. It just wasn't working. And it kind of showed negative fight IQ from Danny Silva to keep entering in the boxing range. Guard low, which there's nothing wrong with because he did show some decent defence. But he was just kind of letting Vijayhos tee off on him at times. And you could feel that it started to become frustration instead of gamesmanship. And Vijayhos stayed composed, and we're going to talk about him in a second. Very good performance, because Danny Silva is a very good fighter. I thought Danny Silva was better though early, when he's using the front kicks up the middle to set up his boxing combinations, to set up his straight punches. He had to work in this fight behind more kicks. And he just didn't. He didn't in this fight, for whatever reason. The fight really started to get away from him. He really struggled offensively to land anything clean on Vijayhos. Honestly, look at the fight back. He'd try a knee up the middle. Vijayhos would just work out the angle slightly a little bit. Obviously, Vijayhos landed some pretty decent right overhands. He started off missing them all on Danny Silva. He just couldn't time that range. But as soon as he started shortening up that right hand over the top of Danny Silva's jab, man, he started landing it consistently. Silva showed a really good chin too. I think Silva could have even won that fight though. I really think he let that fight get away from him, and it was a really iffy performance because he is a lot better than that. I wouldn't put him in O-Brother. It wasn't an absolute terrible performance, but his ego got the better of him, showed some bad fight IQ in there. There was a better game plan I think he could have followed instead of just trying to goad Vijayhos into overextending. When it's not working the first, second and third and fourth times, you've really got to start switching it up and get back to the game plan and listen to your coaches. Kevin Vijayhos, easily one of the best performances of the night. He's going to go in great performance. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. Absolutely fantastic from Kevin Vijayhos. Or Villejos. I do apologise if I'm mispronouncing his name. But I appreciate the performance. Excellent boxing. Struggled to get the timing down on Silva early. Silva is not a bad fighter whatsoever. Vijayos, his defence might not look as flashy as keeping your guard low as Danny Silva. It might not look as, oh wow, and as eye-catching. But if you can just adjust the angle, if you can manage your energy efficiently, which is exactly what Vijayos did in this fight, man, excellent stuff for such a young guy to be composed. And it just shows that meta in MMA at the moment is that fundamental boxing style with decent power punching, good weight distribution in between your shots, and the composure of a boxer, the amateur boxers, where you see usually boxers as martial artists are a lot more composed than other martial artists like kickboxers or Muay Thai fighters. They're a lot more composed usually compared to the other martial arts. And you're starting to see as more boxers with great grappling seep through. He even got some decent takedowns on Danny Silva. With great grappling, good takedown defense, good jiu-jitsu, great wrestling. When you mix that up with a solid fundamental boxing style, decent guard, decent slips on the inside and outside, man, you're going to be hard to beat. That style that Ilia Topuria has brought into MMA, followed by guys like Alexandre Topuria and Kevin Vijayos, man, this style is the new meta in MMA, because these kickboxers with unorthodox kicks, decent shots, overdoing these big angled movements, it's a bit more flashy, but man, the new meta in MMA is that boxer grappler style, and it's working very, 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 very well, especially in a small octagon like in the Apex. I think Kevin Vijayos used space really well. Just an excellent performance, man. I could talk about it all night. Neil Magny needed a win. Needed this win. He's going to go bottom of good win. Aggressive this time from Neil Magny. Where the hell has this Neil Magny been? Anybody else thought that? When I was watching this fight, I thought, Neil Magny, where have you been? Who are you and what have you done with Neil Magny? Very aggressive in this fight. Showed a lot of urgency. Had he have lost this fight, he might have been in big trouble in regards to getting cut from the UFC. He needed a good fight. He needed a good win. And that's exactly what he did. He brought volume on. Zaleski dos Santos walked into a couple of right overhands. We've seen Neil Magny get badly knocked out twice in a row in the build-up to this fight. Obviously, Neil Magny is still a gatekeeper. Nothing's going to change. He's not going to have a career late turnaround, a late bloom and go on a title run or anything. But he needed a big win. Zaleski dos Santos, not the best performance. Waiting too much for Neil Magny. He's going to have to go in, oh brother. Waiting too much for Neil Magny. Looking for singular shots too much. Probably thought Magny's chin might be a lot worse than it actually was going into this fight. So maybe he underestimated that. But overall, a really, really solid performance by Neil Magny. Needed that win. Needed a good win. And boy, did he get it. So now moving on, we have, of course, got Elvis Brener. His fight with Esteban Rivovic was arguably not even fight of the night, which is insane considering this fight was an absolute barn burner. It's got to be so disheartening fighting someone like Esteban Rivovic when you just can't get him out of there. Comes forward, tight guard. Not the best head movement. He's very hittable, Esteban Rivovic, and one day he is, of course, going to get horrifically KO'd. But until that day comes, insane fights, insane wars. I'm a really big fan of him. I thought he performed really, really well in this fight. Kept volume on Elvis Brener. Uses his strengths really, really well. Esteban Rivovic tries to drag you into a volume-heavy kind of cardio kickboxing match where you're getting pressed on the back foot by him. You've really got to push Esteban Rivovic back or use grappling against him to have a lot of success. And Elvis Brener just couldn't get going. So Elvis Brener, he's got to go in iffy. Not bad, Elvis Brener. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Decent jabs on Esteban Rivovic. Decent straight punches. Slowed down massively in this fight. Of course he's going to, because you're fighting at such a high pace. Not the worst conditioning though. It's not like he had terrible conditioning. It was just such a war. Really didn't have to pop in his shots to gain the respect out of Rivovic. I do think Elvis Brener is a lot better than that performance though. At times lacked a little bit defensively. Did well at not just staying in front of Rivovic apart from the third round when he started gassing out. Working off on angles, trying to keep his punches straight. Needed more combinations instead of just 1-2s to really trouble Esteban Rivovic back, and so you could reset, if that kind of makes sense. Because if you're throwing 1-2s or just singular jabs constantly at Rivovic, you're never going to get to reset. You can throw a jab, take a big step out and try and work on an angle and reset. And Rivovic is right in front of you again. You've got to gain the respect out of him more. Daniel Zellhuber found that out the hard way. Rivovic is very, very good, man. He's just a marauder. I'm going to put Rivovic in, and this might, you know what, great performance, because it was a war, and I'm a big fan of Rivovic, man. He brings it. He's not going to be a world champion. He's very tough. Very hard for anyone in that lightweight division to fight, except maybe the top guys. You know, he's somebody that if you can beat comfortably, it shows how good you are. Like, you've got to be really good to beat him comfortably. He's very good, Esteban Rivovic. Brings the fight every single time. Not the best at moving his head off centre line. He's just so hittable. But man, someone so durable, fighting someone like that has got to be so disheartening. Imagine fighting Esteban Rivovic, man. And every time you hit him, it's just nothing. Just nothing. Just bouncing off his head. And nothing's happening. Very durable performance. Very good fight. A war. I'm going to bump Rivovic down to good win. I really want to put him in great performance, but he got tagged a lot in this fight. It was a war. On a technical level, there's a lot they could have both done better. But Rivovic fights to his strengths. He knows what he's good at, what he's not good at. You're not going to see him go out there, pull countering, working takedowns. He's just going to try push the pace on you, use his durability, conditioning, great chin, decent power in his shots. I like Esteban Rivovic, man. I like him. Chris Duncan. He can go up too. I'm going to put him in great performance. Similar reasons to Esteban Rivovic. But I really just like Chris Duncan. You know what I mean? I'm going to put him in great performance. Fellow member of the UK, Chris Duncan. Scotland. You know, big shout out to Scotland. We love Scotland. Chris Duncan, man, has he got power in his hands. He's got thudding shots. Mateusz Rebecki wears damage like no other, right? He's always got horrific eye injuries, orbital bone injuries, cuts. He's got horrific scar tissue on that man's face. Chris Duncan, he has a little bit thicker skin than Mateusz Rebecki, apart from the third round where you really started to see the cuts and, you know, swelling started to come up on Chris Duncan's face. He doesn't wear damage as easily as Rebecki in the early rounds, and I think that's what stole Duncan the early rounds. Rebecki had a horrible hematoma. His right eye was completely swollen shut. Duncan, he doesn't have like crushing one-punch knockout power, but he's got very thudding hands. He was a little bit slow to react in this fight to some of Rebecki's combinations, but because it was fight of the night, and because it was such a war, because it was such a barn burner, I really want to give Chris Duncan a massive shout out. He's picked up a few decent wins in the UFC now. Mateusz Rebecki beat Mateka Rolby last year, was it? Or 2023. So Mateusz Rebecki's a banana skin fight that anybody can lose. He drags you into that war, and very few people, when they get dragged into that war, can come out of it against Rebecki. Rolby was one of those people. You know, he fell into that trap of Rebecki, and Rebecki drowned him. But it was a really, really good performance by both of them. Obviously, I'm going to put Rebecki in iffy. A lot he could improve on. A lot he could do better. Was a very, 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 very good war. I loved this fight. Awesome fight. One of my favourite fights maybe ever. Kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Awesome fight. I don't know what else to say about it, but Rebecki didn't win, so I can't put him in good win. I'm not going to put him in great performance either, because he took a lot of damage. He sustained a lot of shots. But man, Rebecki's going to go in iffy. And what a fight, man. Rebecki just brings that war every single time. But man, the damage was horrific. And I don't know how many times he can keep doing that in his career before it gets too much. Good war from Chris Duncan. Shout out to him. Shout out to Scotland. Good win. Park Hyun-sung, or Hyun-sung Park. It's going to have to be your brother. It's going to have to be. And I don't want to do this because he took the fight on short notice. And I am a big believer in Hyun-sung Park's ability. He does have better boxing than he showed against Tyra. He looked petrified of Tyra's takedown. Absolutely petrified. And that didn't even help him. You know, he didn't have the preparation to prepare for the takedowns of Tyra. So maybe there is that. And Tyra is just an elite level grappler. But yeah, I feel bad for Park Hyun-sung because he was very hesitant, very worried about the takedown. And got dropped in the first round. The first round for me was a 10-8. Full round of control time from Tyra. Submission attempts dropped Park Hyun-sung. And Hyun-sung Park, I keep switching his name around, sorry guys. Hyun-sung Park didn't do anything in the first, didn't land anything at all. So for me, that was a 10-8 round. And then Tyra got a quick back take in the second and finished him. Excellent performance by Tatsuro Taira. He's going to go at the very top of great performance, slightly above Kevin Vijayos, because it was the main event, the first ever all-Asian UFC main event. Excellent performance by Tatsuro Taira. I mean, future champion, in my opinion. Or definitely future title contender. Obviously, he had that loss to Brandon Royval. That was never a loss I would make Tatsuro Taira lose too much stock in. It wasn't an absolutely terrible loss. It's just one of those things. Royval comes with output, good takedown defence. It's easy to kind of get caught up in Royval's web, if that kind of makes sense. So it was never a fight where I think Taira should have lost stock. And in this fight, man, he just showed why he's such a top talent. 25 years old, great composure, good speed in his combinations, excellent takedowns, very good grappler. A problem for these flyweights to deal with. Jun Park, feel bad for him, took the fight on short notice, but ultimately, man, didn't show anything. So it's got to be your brother. Thank you all very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the card in the comments. Do you like this style of video? I've done a couple of tier lists now, but this is my first time doing a card reaction tier list kind of video. So let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye, everybody.